Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
What were we talking about today, Claire?
Today's case is going to be in Fort Mitchell, Alabama in November 2020.
Ooh, that's a current one.
Sure done diddly is. So we're going to start with 35-year-old Bryan Starr, who he lives with his longtime girlfriend and her twin sons, 5-year-old Austin and Colton Birdsey. Now, Bryan is an active duty soldier in the Army stationed at Fort Moore, Georgia. Although in 2020 it's Fort Benning, but right now, since they did the whole changing of the naming, they was Fort Benning in 2020. But he's a sergeant first class in the Army. He's 33 years old. Christina is his girlfriend. They share a home in Fort Mitchell.
Okay.
Bryan was originally from Illinois. He was assigned to the 3rd Squadron, 16th Cavalry. He'd been assigned to California, Texas, Kentucky, Hawaii. He even had one combat deployment in Iraq. He'd been in the military at, up to this point, 17 years. So
Oh shit.
they've been together for the last several, and like I said, share a home together. Now on Sunday, November 29th, 2020, one of the twins, Austin, was being unruly in the later evening on Sunday. Like, I feel like towards bedtime. So apparently, if the boys acted up or were throwing tantrums, it wasn't abnormal to just go for a ride to, like, just get out of the house. So on this
That's
particular day, Austin was the one acting up. So Bryan agreed to take Austin for a drive. Now, I feel like Christina and Colton, all 4 of them, were home. It never said that in the news articles, but it said Bryan agreed to take Austin for a ride. And since they're twin boys, I don't know why one boy would be at home and one boy wouldn't be. And that would tell me that he didn't just leave another 5-year-old at home when he took the one boy for a drive. And I would feel like Christina is the one who asked him to take him for a ride, since he agreed to take Austin for a ride. But that's just a matter of, I believe that's how this happened. Now, Austin had been having temper tantrums, saying that he wanted to run away and get a new family. This is around 7 p.m. So
How old is he?
He's 5.
All right.
I don't know what the temper tantrums were, but that's why I said other than, I mean, that's what little kids do. They throw
And
fits.
he's not, I'm assuming since the boys have a different last name, he's not the father of the kids.
No, that's why I said he lives with his girlfriend and her kids.
Yeah.
She had
Okay.
been previously married. That Christina was divorced like shortly after the boys were born. So basically, Bryan has been with Christina since they were about 2, 1.5, 2. So he's practically, a father figure there. Now,
Was their dad involved, do you know?
So I don't know how much you can be because dad is out of state. And not to say that that doesn't work, but you're certainly not part of day-to-day if you're several states away.
Right.
Like, you can do the FaceTiming thing, but you're not. It's
That's
not the
hands-on
same.
parenting.
Right. So I'm not going to say that he wasn't, but as much as you can be at a distance.
All right.
Now, I'm just going to throw this out there. I know we've talked about this before, but this is actually really close to where my stomping grounds are. So I was aware of this case when it happened. I remember the day because when we get to what occurred, I'm familiar even down to the day that this was a cold, dreary winter day. It was one of those days where the cloud cover is so dense, it doesn't feel like the sun ever comes up and everybody kind of sleeps in because it doesn't feel... It was a doomy, gloomy, all-day rainy kind of day, and it was cold.
Ew.
Which I'm sure you can picture those cold... I mean, you've lived through them. So where it's just like, it's a cold rain when you go outside. It may not be... I mean, it might say that it's like 50, 55 degrees, but with the cold of the rain, it just makes it even colder. Nobody wants to be outside during that. So I remember we didn't do shit that day. It was a Sunday. Nothing's open in the South then anyway. So it was like a Netflixing day. But so I would imagine having a 5-year-old inside, I feel like he probably was bored from being kept inside all day, not getting that energy out. So when it get closer to winding down and bedtime, he hasn't expended that. So I feel like, yeah, he might be acting out because he's restless.
Yeah.
Again, just me taking a wild guess at what is setting us up for they get in the car to try to wear him out. Or, like, I feel like trying to get him to go to sleep or calm down. You know, people do that with babies. I don't know how much it works with a 5-year-old, but that's what I pictured. So,
for my boys, when they were like that, they liked to do jumping jacks. So it was like, all right, why don't you do as many jumping jacks as you can? And then they'd only do like 5 or 6, and they'd be like, I'm so tired. And it's like, oh, you can do more than that. And then it became like a competition. If I pit them against each other, oh, he's doing more than you. Oh, he's going faster. And then lo and behold, them children got real tired real quick.
Well, I feel like the other side to this would be there's also another 5-year-old in the house. And if this is treading on after 7 o'clock when maybe we're starting to do the bedtime routines, if you've got one acting out or not wanting to cooperate, and then the other one maybe isn't, or even if they are, maybe feeding off each other. I don't know. Haven't raised twins, so I don't know if that's like a thing. But anyway, so Bryan and Austin are in the car traveling down Highway 165 when whatever tantrum or fit that Austin is having reaches a point where Ryan decides to pull the car over into a church parking lot, and he tells the little boy to get out of his Dodge Charger. Now, mind you, it's raining. It's raining and it's dark out because it's winter. The sun sets around 5 o'clock around here in the winter.
What month is this?
November. The end of November.
It's still technically fall.
Andrea?
Just saying. Continue.
Well, in the South, we don't have fall or winter.
What?
Shut up, Andrea. This isn't part of the story. It's November, it was cold, it was raining all dang day, it's dark out, which even if it was in the summer, if it's dark out, I feel like it would be scary.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they pull into the church parking lot and makes the boy get out of his Dodge Charger and into the rain, telling him that he can find a new family at the church. Now they're just barely 2 miles from their home. Now, when Austin gets out, he tries the handle, but Bryan had locked the door. And then as he tries to drive off, the little boy runs in front of the car, and there is surveillance from the church. I sent that one to you. But he tries to stop him. So it's just like, it's so hard to watch because you can tell by the way the little boy runs to the front of the car. He stands there for a little bit. Bryan backs the car up, and I don't know what's being said. I imagine he's telling him to get out of the way. But eventually he does pull off, leaving the little boy in the cold and the rain to chase after his car as he pulls away.
What a piece of shit.
Now, this surveillance shows poor little Austin doing that frantic little run after his car. He even loses his shoe, but doesn't stop to collect it because he's in such a panic. He then goes to the church door, banging on it, trying to pull the handle, desperately looking for help. No one's there.
It's awful. You're going to make me cry.
Well, it's so sad, because to watch the video of this desperate little boy, I mean, he's moving quickly. I mean, who knows? He might think the boogeyman's out there. But it's also, it's cold.
Poor baby.
But sadly, again, the church is locked, so there's no sanctuary there for this little boy. Now, it's not long after Bryan pulls off before he starts noticing traffic backing up on this county highway. Now, this is an unlit county highway. There's one single lane going one direction and 2 coming the other way. Now, where it is a county road, it is fairly busy of a road because there's a lot of houses because it goes to the south gate of Fort Benning or Fort Moore, whichever one you're going to know it by. The speed limit's 55, but nobody does it on there. Now, I would imagine since it was rainy, people probably are closer to the speed limit just because it's rainy and it's dark. But it's limited visibility because of that rain.
And I'm assuming if there's limited visibility because of the lack of lighting, that means there's probably also no sidewalks.
Yeah, no sidewalk. It's a county road, Andrea. Anyway, so in the effort to teach Austin whatever lesson Bryan had hoped to, when the little boy was running around all frantic, like checking the door on the church and everything, somehow he loses sight of him in the rain, like he didn't know where he went. So, like, it's a really big church parking lot, so I feel like when Bryan had pulled off, he did the whole drive around the church thing just to do whatever scare thing that he wanted to do to him. But when he went around and lost sight of him, when he comes back around and the boy's not there, then he notices that traffic is stopped on the road. And I can only imagine the feeling you get, because you know where this is going, is when he realizes that Austin was unaware of where he was and which way to head home, and had made the fatal error of wandering onto the road onto the busy highway in the cold, dark, rainy night. Now, one car would go past Austin, barely missing him. Another car, however, did not see the boy and strikes him.
Oh my
now,
God.
it's at this point when Bryan realizes the unexpected driver of that Toyota Avalon coming down the highway didn't even have time to react or slow down, stop, because nobody expects to see a little kid in the road. Now, both vehicles, the one that saw Austin and then the one that strikes him, they both stop to render aid. 911 is called. It's now 8 o'clock. Traffic stops completely, both directions. And this is the point where I remember seeing it on like your local Facebook awareness thing of don't head this direction, they have the road blocked off. And since it's a county road, it's one of those, if you make that turn, you're going a few miles added to your route there by not being able to know that the road's closed off a couple miles down. So that's why everybody was trying to spread the word of they've got it blocked off both directions because a little boy was hit. And I remember looking over at Dave because I was like, it got dark at like 5 o'clock. We didn't even want to take the dogs out to go to the bathroom because it was that chilled you to the bones cold weather. And I was like, why is there a little boy outside right now?
In that surveillance video you sent, it looks like he's not even wearing a jacket.
I don't think he was. And
so for it to be cold and rainy and then left alone in the dark,
and
his last moment.
Yeah, was cold, dark, and scary.
I'm assuming he passed away when he got hit by the car.
Well, it is homicide hobbies, Andrea. There's a death here.
Well, we do have a couple cases out there where there isn't a death. Maybe a death of a penis, but that's different.
That's true. But so 911's called. It's like closer to 8 o'clock now. Traffic stop. EMS is trying to do their very best for Austin. Unfortunately, he does pass away due to his injuries at the hospital. Now, a small memorial.
Pissed.
Dude. I can only imagine.
I heard
there's so many, like, I realize did not go out there with the intention of killing the little boy, but it bothers me that somebody would put a little boy out in the rain, even if they were home during this, that it's cold and it's rainy. What if he would have gotten pneumonia and died from a bad case of pneumonia? Like, it's
what if he was kidnapped?
Right, like, there's so many, I don't understand where his head was at, and I realize people make poor decisions, but it's just like, he was, I mean, he'd been with both the boys for so long that he helped raise them, so it's not that it would make it better if he just started dating her and then made a stupid decision and the boy runs off.
He should have had more of a parental connection.
I don't understand what disciplinary action it is of kicking them out of the car and driving off. What was that teaching him?
That he can't count on you as a human being? That poor
baby. I felt sick with this one.
If I found out that somebody that I was with like, if I was in the mom's shoes, I probably would not be able to physically be near that man again, because so help me God, I would end up in jail because I would kill that man with my bare hands. Like, that was her baby. You volunteered, or whatever the situation was, to take him for a drive to help get him to calm down. And I don't know at what point making a 5-year-old get out of a vehicle in the dark, in the cold, in the rain was ever a good idea. Even if the little boy was sitting there saying he hated you, he wanted a new family, you're not my dad, like whatever a 5-year-old can say to just pluck your ever living nerve.
I remember when our sister would have a tantrum in the van and Mama just turned the radio up.
Yeah. Or she sang that song to you and her of "My little Claire Bear needs a spanking. My little Claire Bear needs a spanking today. Wah, 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 wah." And the screaming that ensued with that song was like...
It was worse than a spanking.
It really was. And you know what? It might be why you and our sister might be the reason why I don't like the radio cranked up in the car. I do not like it. The loudness, it plucks my nerves, and I never really connected the dots. But I bet it's because my entire childhood was spent listening to screaming in the car and the radio turned up over it. Anyway, well, that's for a different day.
Yeah. Now, a small memorial would be placed along Highway 165 where Austin was struck. Bryan would be charged with reckless murder. Now, in case law, it's sometimes called having a depraved heart, which is basically when you commit an act so reckless that it endangers anyone. It just endangers somebody because you're a piece of shit without using your brain. Now, his arrest warrant read, "Did, under circumstances, manifest extreme indifference to human life." He does turn himself in that Monday, since this was the Sunday, and he does cooperate with law enforcement, which I think is part of the reason he's out on bond that was set for $60,000. I think also the factor of he has 17 years in the military is why they allowed him out on bond. Now, reckless murder in Alabama is punishable up to 99 years or life imprisonment. Now, while out on bond, Bryan and Christina, Austin's mom, would get married, and he would start the process. And he would start the process of retiring from the military. I did the same thing because I don't know how. I imagine he probably feels like a pile of shit, but I don't understand how on earth you get married to someone who's the reason your boy died. I blinked a lot when I read that.
I'm very disappointed in her as a mother.
Yeah.
As a human being, I am very disappointed in her. And I realize shit happens, but no. You should be able to count on your significant other that in a high stress situation and you're just maxed out with your kid, that they can step up to the plate and you guys can work as a team. And if not, if you have to put your kid in their bedroom so that you can take a mental break, where
the other side
shouldn't
of this
be put in jeopardy.
So I did the whole. How could you trust him with the other boy? I mean, he's got a fucking twin. I don't even know how she can look at the brother and not think of Austin every single time she sees him. And then how the fuck? I don't know how you could be with somebody that you couldn't feel comfortable leaving your kid with. You certainly don't marry him. I don't know if it's a case of she's just assuming, well, he learned his lesson, so now he's going to be extra careful with Colton.
At the expense of your child. I would not be able to forgive somebody for that. Not that I hold a grudge, but I feel like there's some things that are worth being forgiven for and other things that aren't. And even if I don't go to my grave wishing harm on him as a human being, I would not be able to have a happy relationship with somebody responsible for killing my 5-year-old.
Right.
Just curious. Is he retiring from the military so that he can try to get benefits still? Because he knows that he's responsible for the little boy's death. I'm assuming he's not denying that. And he knows he's not going to be able to stay in the military once that's on his record. Is that why he's trying to hurry up and retire?
I don't know what the motivation was, because it would
I
take
would
3
assume.
years of him being out on bond before he would have his sentencing hearing. Because, spoiler, Bryan would end up pleading guilty to felony manslaughter, which came with a recommended sentence of 60 months.
That's it?
I know. And now this one I have a lot of turmoil on, because what would be the right punishment for somebody? I realize he didn't go out there to kill the little boy, but at the same time, he robbed that little boy in the most scariest way of his life. He was cold. He was scared. I can only imagine the terror he felt when that first car narrowly missed him.
How about the driver of the vehicle that hit him? The trauma that caused.
But I did the whole no. I came down to the point where no sentence would be one that I felt like was enough.
And I'm going to say that since he pled guilty, that he definitely had a guilty conscience. And I'm wondering if he and her will stay married after he's released. Because if he retired from the military, he's getting some sort of benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Now that they're married, once he's in jail, she will still get some sort of income, right? Because they're married.
Yeah, right.
If it goes to a joint checking account, she will have access to that. She will have health insurance still, and her boy that's still alive will have health insurance, and his ass will be locked up, right?
So at the sentencing, Austin's dad, now mind you, he's out of state, would testify that the video he saw of his son in the rain didn't line up with what Christina had told him happened. Now, I don't know what he was told. I imagine it was downplayed a lot. But the dad says, I saw a terrified little boy looking for somebody to take care of him. Put him back in the car, let him in the church. As strong-willed as the little boy was, he said, I will go home myself. He was just looking for someone to take care of him. Now, Bryan would tell the judge, now mind you, he doesn't say a whole lot in the sentencing thing, but the one thing he does say is things just got out of control. That's his excuse.
No shit.
Now, the DA would say that he didn't see the remorse that he had hoped to see in Bryan during that sentencing hearing, and that he should go to prison to learn what he hasn't clearly learned yet.
You're telling me if he was crying in his Wheaties and begging for forgiveness, there was an option to not put him in prison? Because no.
Well, I'm just telling you. Now, Christina would also testify during the sentencing. She was not in the car that night and was not charged with anything. But she would say, multiple people failed. I failed. Bryan failed. The driver failed. People who saw him on the road failed.
Fuck her.
Bryan... Dude, when I read that, I was like, you can fuck off. How about that?
You failed because you let somebody that did not have control of their emotions leave with your child.
But blame the driver?
That's how she failed. The driver who almost hit him, that attempted to stop to help the little boy on the side of the road, they didn't fail him. First of all, they didn't hit him, and they at least stopped. The car that hit him, fuck her again, because if her piece of shit boyfriend didn't make her 5-year-old get out on the side of a busy highway, another vehicle in the rain would not have hit and killed her 5-year-old. So, yeah, fuck her. She failed, and her boyfriend failed.
Now, she did say that Bryan blamed himself for the boy's death, which I was like,
good.
Yeah. Yeah, because this whole fucking thing happened because of you. So yes, the fault would be at your feet, sir.
Yeah, now, your actions led to his death. Period.
During her testimony, the driver of the vehicle that hit Austin and his wife were sitting in the courtroom. And I can only imagine being them. I would have looked at Dave and been like, did you just hear what that bitch said? We're to blame? How about fuck you? Let's just blame that the sun went down too while we're at it.
And the fact that it's raining.
Now, the judge would impose a 5-year sentence. However, it was a reverse split sentence, which means he does his probation portion before a potential jail sentence, which basically means that jail time is suspended, assuming he can stay out of trouble. So, like the reverse.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't do any jail time, which again is where I was doing the whole,
They were lenient with his sentencing because he was in the military. I would bet anything. Did that kid have like a history of behavioral issues? Not that it excuses the actions, but was there like a history of this kid being violent
So that one is what I was curious of. Is this like a kid who has some sort of issues? And mind you, it's not like they put those in the newspaper of chronic 5-year-old throwing a fit happening again in Fort Mitchell.
Yeah. Well,
I did go on his obituary, and it seemed like he was a very social butterfly, that when he would go to the grocery store, he would strike up a conversation with anyone. He loved to sing in the car. He loved animals. He was very creative. He liked to play outside.
So he was a 5-year-old.
Yeah, a typical 5-year-old boy. And then I saw plenty of people who made a comment of that they didn't like that they tried to make it his fault in the news or make it seem like he was a bad boy. And part of me was like, but are you saying that because it's his obituary and nobody's going to be like, he was a terror little demon that bit me twice when I watched him? But
well, who tried to make it like it was his fault? Because so far I haven't heard anybody.
So the news, every article you'll read, it would say he was having a tantrum and they couldn't get a control over him. He wasn't listening. So that was like trying to paint the picture of, because he was being super bad that day is why they had to put him in the car. And then he was being super, I would guess that he was just screaming in the car, and having been in a car with small space, probably the back of the seat. And that's probably why he got kicked out, because the feller has a Dodge Charger and he's fucking up his nice car. Again, I don't know that. I'm just taking a wild stab. I've had the back of my seat kicked. I understand how annoying it is. I've also been in a small space with a screaming child. I understand where your brain hole goes, where it's just like, get it away from me. However, I wouldn't wish death on the small child. Not that he did, but
his actions led to it. I think the scare tactic was to, if this is what you want, you don't want your family, you don't want to be with me and your mommy. I think he was trying to scare him straight, basically, for lack of a better way to explain that.
Yeah.
Terrible tactic to have, because you're just teaching that kid that he can't count on you.
Yeah.
But
well, and
not that it hasn't.
I had mixed feelings, because having dealt with tantrums before, I've done the whole, we're not screaming like that inside, let's go outside. Never done like the whole kick them outside by themselves while it's raining or it's dark out. It's generally in the middle of the afternoon of, let's go outside. You got energy to burn. Do your screaming out here. And always the screaming will not be outside. Like it's more fun to be outside. So that generally cures a tantrum. So that's where I don't know if that's the case of why they wanted to do the driving thing, because it's not nice outside. But I can't even imagine making that phone call to the mom.
No.
And then the dad's out of state. Just to learn that his son just died a horribly scary, tragic death. And then how do you
like
even...
you said, it sounds like he was lied to.
Well, I would be curious what he was told.
He went outside, wandered into the road.
Right. I'm sure that's what it was.
Or she spun it like Bryan took him out for a drive. He got out of the car and ran into the road. I bet you that's how it was spun.
Now, that's where a bunch of people with their opinions on the news article were like, maybe he pulled into the church parking lot and he jumped out. He literally tells police he told him to get out of the car. And then he locks the doors. And then that's why when you watch that surveillance video where the little boy is like almost on the front of the hood kind of thing, you see him in the headlights that he wanted back in that car. It's disgusting to me. And then when I was like, she married him. And then when she blames the driver of the car that hits him, I was like, wow, they're in the room. Like, the balls on this lady.
That expression, love is blind, it sure fucking is, because she is not looking at him and holding him accountable for what he did.
Well, he was sorry.
Fuck that. You can be sorry. I'm definitely not marrying your ass.
Well, dude,
but again, I'll be curious to see. Oh, well, he didn't go to jail.
Yeah.
So
right.
What the?
And I feel like since this is now, he's at his 20-year mark in the military. Since that paperwork, he's not retired all the way yet. it's frustrating. They do not live in the same house anymore. They did move. I did try to, because I was just curious about her. Because when I was researching this one, because like I said, local, so at first I just heard about a little boy getting hit by a car and then was engrossed in what the fuck? Who does that? And then it's been a long 3 years following this shit to see what sentence he would get. But
he got nothing. He got
right.
Abso-fucking-lutely nothing.
Really, other than being processed and booked in, he's been out. Like, I do a lot of blanking. But I just was curious what they were up to. But they did move the next county over. And I thought it was interesting because I would assume he's going to be changing his name. I also assume that he hasn't done so yet because he's in the middle of a court process and it would make no sense to do that. But they don't have the same last name. I'm not going to tell you what it was because it took me an awful lot of digging to figure it out. But she goes by a drastically different name, which makes sense because I imagine around here it was hard to get away from all that. But they're in a different county and different house. So I would imagine he'll be changing his name to her last name, the new one she picked. But it's still pretty much locals. And anyway, that was your brain fuck for the day, because it just gives a lot to mull over of what would you do?
I do not thank you for that one because that's a really sad case to hear.
I still don't know what a good punishment would be, but I don't feel like the one he got was a punishment.
It wasn't. He didn't get punished at all. He literally got away with being responsible for murdering a child.
No. His punishment is he's married now. You know,
fuck you. I take personal offense to that because I think I'm a great wife for my husband.
But you're not married to her. They could have been like, hey, Don did it.
No, because you know what? That bitch is sitting there and saying that he is not holding him responsible. She's blaming the driver for not seeing a small child on a road where a small child shouldn't be. So no, she sounds like she's a great wife for him.
That case that I did where the feller was just like, he was hoping the sentence would be marriage because he wanted to marry his victim's sister. The jury would come back with a... Oh, yeah. Your brain hole wasn't tracking that one. He got his sentence. It was marriage.
Not that it has really anything to do with this case, but I know it's hard to picture a 5-year-old that's unruly and out of control.
It's really not.
And not saying that he was like that, but your youngest niece, my youngest daughter, when she was in kindergarten, there was a little boy that got transferred from another county over because he got expelled. He was so disruptive to the class that he ended up being put in a room by himself for the majority of the day. He would come to school for 1 or 2 days out of the week because he'd end up being suspended for the remainder of the week for doing the worst things that a 5-year-old could do. He threatened to stab my daughter with a pair of scissors because she was looking at him because he bit the teacher. He would cuss at the kids. He would throw pencils at people. I remember going up to the school because I was going to have lunch with my kids, and the security guy and 2 other people were waiting on that little boy's mom to come pick him up because after spitting and biting people, they were trying to get him out of the classroom. They had to physically lift, with the mom's permission, they had to physically lift him up, and he refused to walk. So there were 3 adults holding this little 5-year-old who's thrashing about, spitting and biting, profanity out the wazoo coming out of his mouth. And he looked like a mental patient.
He doesn't go to their school
anymore.
He sounds like a mental patient.
But I couldn't imagine a household with that boy. Granted, I wouldn't go stick him in a car and go for a drive because I feel like putting him in a contained situation like that seems a bit hazardous. Yeah, because driving is already a dangerous thing. And like our Paul used to say, driving's one of the most dangerous things you'll ever do.
He said that to you.
Fuck you, says the lady that wrecked the left side of the car on the right side of the road.
What is your vehicle totaling rate?
You know what?
People in glass houses, Andrea, shouldn't throw rocks.
You threw the first one.
Anyway, that was your brain fuck for today.
Thanks. You successfully did.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mindfucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.